So in today's course, there's going to be 3 things that we take a look at. Number 1 is going to be, we're going to talk about how you can take control of your marketing dollars. So in this new landscape of business, marketing is different than it used to be. It used to be you just take out an ad in the yellow pages, or you would, put something on the radio, you'd have a nice creative ad, and you'd get a return from it. The rules have changed. And so we got to be able to take control of our marketing dollars. Next up that we're going to talk about is how to train your sales team for the current landscape of business. What happens when a customer is shopping online in your showroom? How do you react to it? Do you embrace it? Do they get mad about it? Do they turn the customer away? We got to be able to train our sales teams about what do they do in this new landscape. Like we talked about before, speed and convenience has become the new expertise, and in the new landscape of business, our team members have to be ready for it. Lastly, we're going to talk about how to retain talent and convert them into brand ambassadors. So this is a 3-part course. Part 1 is going to be a deep dive on marketing. Part 2 is going to be all about sales. And then Part 3 is about leadership and team development. That these are all factors we have to be aware of if we're going to win in the new landscape of business. Like the last course, you are more than welcome to raise your hand. You're welcome to disagree with me. And we're not as limited by time. So, we can really dive deep onto the Q&A, getting specific for your business. So by all means, don't feel bad cutting me off or raising your hand if you want to go deep on something that we're flying over. Any questions about these topics before we get started? Do any of you guys need help taking control of your marketing dollars?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, I think we're on to something. So we're going to spend the first little bit talking about marketing, and I'm going to throw up a statistic that is not at all controversial and tell you that I believe 90% of the marketing dollars in this industry are wasted. 90%, 9-0. The 90% of the marketing dollars in our industry are wasted. We're going to talk about why that is. There's been a lot of changes in the way that marketing is done, and we can get into it. We're seeing traditional advertising in some ways become less and less effective. There's a lot of mystery money that gets spent on digital impressions, whatever that is. There's a lot of factors that are out there, and most companies aren't tracking it the way that they should. And because of that, when I say 90% is wasted, my definition of that is that I believe if you invited me in, I could come into your business, we could look at systematically what you spend in marketing, we could cut out 90% of it and your sales wouldn't change. And the reason I know this is that when I took over at my company, we cut our budget by 90%. We looked at what we spent, and we said, this is insane. We're not tracking it, there's not a return on it, and we cut it out. And we grew every year since then. So I'm not saying marketing's bad. I'm totally in for paying for marketing that works, but if you don't keep your eyes on it, a lot of that money is wasted. You're just going into a black hole, and you have no idea if you're getting a return. So the reason that marketing dollars are wasted, number 1 is that websites are not set up to properly help customers. We're going to come back to this in a second, but that's the reason number 1 is that websites aren't set up to actually help customers. Number 2 is that traditional advertising is becoming less and less effective. I think it's true that if 10 years ago we ran a TV ad, you probably got a bigger return than you do now. Is that fair? A print ad, a magazine ad? And have the costs gone up or down to reflect that return on investment? Which, up a little bit or up a lot? A lot. So you're paying more for less of a return. That's the way it is right now. Traditional advertising is becoming less and less effective. And then the last part is confusing sales copy and messaging. So you could have the perfect marketing plan. You could have the right outlets, whether it's TV, print, radio, social media. I'm not biased with that stuff. If it works, it works. But if you found the right channel for marketing and you have a confusing message, is that going to help customers? No, it's going to waste money. And so this is something that's happening a lot. So taking a deep dive, number 1 on websites is that if we audit our websites, a website is like a first date with a customer. Before they ever come into your showroom, my friend Bradley Hartman calls it the silent sale. But before they ever see you, they're doing upwards of 20 hours of research online. That's what the data says, upwards of 20 hours of research. And they're encountering you, your manufacturers, your competitors, and the silent sale is where a lot of business should be won. But most of our customers are confused by our webpage. They're hitting the back button. Your website should be able to engage customers like a first date, show that you're attractive, show that you're competent to help solve their problem or address their want, Dan, and then from there, be able to capture customer information to create a lead. If your website is not actively capturing customer information to turn it into a lead, you're wasting marketing dollars sending people to your website. Because say that you run a TV campaign for, I don't know what the market is out here, but $50,000, $100,000, $200,000 in a year for a huge TV radio campaign. What's the call to action in the TV ad? Go to our website. And if your website doesn't engage the customer by capturing a lead with a phone number, email address, you have no idea if they're coming into your store. They're hitting the back button and they're going to go to somebody else. So your website has got to be able to capture that information. So that's one of the reasons that marketing dollars are wasted is that we're not spending it in effective ways. We're not using our website as part of our sales funnel. And it would be like, if your website is generic, it's like going fishing with a hole in your net. Yeah, you're getting fish in the net, but there's a giant hole in it, and they're all leaking out the other side. The next one is this is self-explanatory, but just traditional advertising is becoming less and less effective. This is something that it's grossly overpriced. We get people coming in to try to sell us TV and radio and things like that, and they'll throw a $75,000 campaign at us without even blinking, and I'll say, well, what kind of a return should I expect on my investment? And they'll say, well, it doesn't work that way. I'll say, well, why on earth are we going to spend this kind of money with you then if there's no return if you can't even talk to me about what I can start to expect about a return on the investment? And, I'm not saying that all traditional advertising is bad. There's still times that TV works. There's still times that radio works. But if we audit our own behavior, it's less effective. Anybody in this room, do you watch the commercials on TV if given the opportunity? No. What do you do? Fast forward.
Only during Super Bowl.
Only during Super Bowl. Yep, that's exactly right. Gary Vaynerchuk says the only TV that's worth doing is at the Super Bowl because it's the only time people's attention is on it. You can debate that if you want, but I think that he's onto something there. And if you think about this, so let's say that you're watching live sports or something like that, and there is a commercial break. What's the first thing that's in between your face and the TV the second that a commercial break goes on?
A beer.
A beer? Yep. What else? A phone. Who said that? Yes. We have an attention deficit device in our pants pocket that the second a commercial comes on, it is right in between our face and the TV. So I don't care how many impressions you get, people's attention is not on it. And this is just the world that we live in. So, yeah, Dan likes beer. So the fact of the matter is that we're seeing a disruption in the way that marketing is done. Again, I'm not saying all TV is bad, I'm not saying all radio is bad and all print's bad, but generally speaking, our attention is no longer on those things. There is a place where our attention is, and all the advertisers know it because it's where they're marketing to us. As you're scrolling through Facebook, as you're scrolling through Instagram, everybody is coming after you on your smartphone. And then lastly, it's just, a lot of our stuff has very confusing sales copy. I'm not going to make anybody raise their hands, but have you ever run an ad that has something to the effect of working with the highest integrity since 1975? Or quality is what we deliver every single day? Not going to make anyone raise their hand, but does that solve a customer's problem? I'll take the stunned silence as a maybe. Does that solve a customer's problem? No, it doesn't. And again, we're being blasted with so many ads that if we're not radically clear in what our words do, what our products do, and how that addresses problems, we're not going to win. And it goes back to me and Dan had a great conversation talking about how the only reason that people buy is to avoid pain or to achieve gain. It's the only reasons. And if your advertising does not speak with radical clarity as to how your products do those things, then people are going to tune it out and not pay attention. You see all these ads about, we have 30,000 BTUs an hour. We have over 8 models to choose from. We have 36, 42-inch, and 50-inch fireplaces. What problem of the customers does that solve? None. No customer wakes up in the morning and thinks, gosh, I'm just really looking for a 42-inch fireplace today. What they do wake up and think about is, gosh, this house is freezing. We better get a fireplace in here. So your ad should say something like, is your house cold? We'll make it really warm. Those are the kinds of things that are going to solve people's problems. It's radical clarity, and it's going to speak to the pain that they have or the gain that they want to achieve. But we're facing this right now, is that a lot of marketing we do on autopilot. We've had the same radio ad for 10 years or 15 years. We just talk about, well, what slots do you want? We don't actually think about what's the message in it, because it doesn't matter if you have the right channel. If the message is wrong, it's not going to resonate. I could come in here and start speaking French, giving the same presentation that I'm giving now, and I'm guessing that it wouldn't resonate with most of the people in here. Except for you. But your advertising is the same way. So it doesn't matter the channel, you have to have the messaging right. And we're going to dive into a little bit about what that is. Yeah?
Kind of reminds me of when people run their ads and then a person comes to your store and I seen your ad and it wasn't your ad.
Yeah. Yep.
They didn't present it in a way that people knew it was they, I was talking.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, thanks. I love that. Wasn't it great?
Yeah, my favorite, I love it when I see competitors' TV commercials because I know I'm going to get a shot at it. I love it. And frankly, this is, I get people asking me, why do I give presentations like this? Why do I go to these different parts of the country and lay my cards on the table? I give away our process. And why is my boss okay with that? Well, what we've realized is that our industry is not oversaturated. If you go in your neighborhood and knock on 10 different doors and ask them what a gas insert is, I don't think any of your neighbors are going to have a clue. So why are we holding our cards so tight to the vest when 9 out of 10 people in my neighborhood don't even know about the product that we sell? It's not like we're selling something that's been commoditized. Like, I feel bad for the car dealers. There is some value in a dealership, but like when we bought our last car, dude, I don't care about the value of a local dealer. There's nothing that they can give me that anyone else can't give me. I care about the price because when all things are equal, price is what matters. In our industry, the beauty is that all things are not equal. And because of how undersaturated we are, I really believe in a high tide, all ships rise. And so, I love it when I got a direct competitor in Seattle. We directly compete. And he's one of the first people I'm calling if I have a problem. Hey, are you seeing this in the market? What are you doing out there? How do you address this? I don't have anything to hide. We're all doing the same thing and we're playing by the same rules, but in a high tide, all ships rise. So if we're going to take a deep dive on the website and we're going to talk about how you can turn your website into something that starts working for you instead of confusing customers and working against you, the first thing it's got to do is it's got to pass a test within 5 seconds. And this goes back to Donald Miller, and Donald Miller calls it the grunt test. And if we measure our own consumer behavior, we're exactly like this, that within 5 seconds, you need to be able to answer the question, number 1, what products and services do you offer? Self-explanatory. Number 2, how will it make my life better? And number 3, what do they need to do to buy? So this test is a pass or fail test. It is 3 or it is 0. There is you don't get any credit for 1 or for 2 because our consumer behavior is the same way. If we're trying to find something online, you've literally got 5 seconds. If I don't get the answer to those 3 questions, I'm hitting the back button and I'm looking for somebody else. So you'd be surprised, but if you go to a stranger here at Topgolf, like if I took my laptop and went and handed it to a stranger, they looked at it for 5 seconds with your website, could they say, well, yeah, they sell fireplaces? Could they answer, how does it make my life better? Most of our websites don't say that. Most websites just talk about BTUs and specs and they don't talk about, is your house cold? We can make it warm. There's nothing like a beautiful fire at Christmas time. Our websites don't address anything that talks about how is a customer's life better. If you look at manufacturers' brochures don't show pictures of happy people. And if they do, they're these like cheesy smiles looking at the camera. What we need are lifestyle pictures. What does it look like for a family to enjoy their fireplace? You got to enforce, how does this make my life better? I'm not buying a cold static room with a nice chair and a vase. I'm buying Christmas time. I'm buying family game night. I'm buying a camp out with my kids in the living room. That's what I'm buying, and a fireplace is just a vehicle to get me there. So we have to start addressing that with the pictures and the copy that we use on our website. The last thing about what do they need to do to buy is such a big one. We got to have super clear calls to action on our website. So whenever I give presentations like this, I always get dealers that say, well, yeah, we're capturing leads. Our website has a contact us button. But the reality, no, does any customer want to contact us? No one does. So we got to have calls to action that are compelling and actually engaging to help solve their problem. Schedule an appointment. Call now. Buy now. Get the free design guide. We got to have calls to action all over our webpage that show the customer, what do I need to do to buy? Come to the showroom. Schedule a visit. Call now. And honestly, you should have like 12 of these on your homepage. Top right corner, middle. When you scroll down, in the middle. When you scroll down, in the middle. You should have a pop-up. Like this needs to be all over your webpage, showing the customer what they need to do to buy. With most customers, and if you go to a lot of, even manufacturers' websites, customers have no idea what to do next. Maybe the dealer locator is like teeny tiny up in the corner, but they have no idea what they need to do next. And you have the opportunity, since you've paid all these marketing dollars, I mean, I'm sure for some of your companies, hundreds of thousands of marketing dollars, exclusively to send people to your website. Why not make your website something that actually enters them into the sales funnel? So this is a test that's really, really important. In a couple weeks, I'm going out to Minneapolis to give a presentation out there about digital marketing, and I actually take about 5 different websites from our industry, and I blur out the names and the logos to protect the names of the innocent. But we actually go through these websites and we try to answer these questions, and you'd be amazed. There's hearth companies. There's a hearth company, I will not say the state, that has, you go to their website and it's a picture of a beautiful house with trees in the background. And it's like, do you sell houses? Like, do you sell windows? Or like, I don't know what you sell. There's so many websites that don't talk about the problems that we solve. They don't talk about, when you buy this, how is my life better? If you want to see a website that nails this, go to the CarMax website. So if you go to the CarMax website, it's unbelievable because you're going to see pictures of happy people that are like loading up for vacation. You're going to see pictures of parents dropping their kids off at soccer practice, and it invites you in to say, this car makes your life better. It's total subliminal messaging, but you want to be that family. They have text in the middle that says, CarMax helps you get more adventures. All of a sudden I'm thinking, okay, my life can be better. My life can be better. They're not saying 5 models to choose from. Get a 1998 to 2015 Subaru. They're talking about the problems that they solve. They're making me want to have the kind of life that these folks have. And they got CTAs, calls to action, all over the website. Find your car now. Decide on the car that's right for you. Schedule an appointment. Schedule a visit. I try not to speak specifically about manufacturers when I give these presentations, but I'm going to call out a manufacturer that has, in my opinion, created the best piece of marketing content that I've ever seen in our industry. And it's an ad that Napoleon ran in Hearth and Home, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so. And I don't have a picture of it for the presentation, but maybe you remember it's a picture of a family in a living room and their baby's taking their first steps. Have you guys seen this ad? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, so it's a flip open thing. So it's an empty living room. You flip it open, and it's parents, and their little daughter is taking their first steps, and the room's kind of messy. It's like a normal living room, and the fireplace is in the background. And I'm telling you, that is the best marketing piece I've ever seen. We'll get into why that is, but it shows you. Like, I'm a young parent. I'm sitting there thinking, like, dude, I want that life. I think their tagline was like, see your living room in a whole new light, or something like that. But it starts to speak to me. Those are the kinds of things that we need to have in our messaging, talking about how it's going to make our lives better. Once we've done this to our website, we've created a sales funnel with it. And I guess I'll back up real quick. So on your website, practical step number 1, create calls to action. Schedule an appointment, book now, schedule an in-home visit, come into the showroom. And with those calls to action, you should be capturing at least a first name and an email address, and you should have a follow-up email marketing campaign that goes out like clockwork, sending between 7 and 20 emails to your customer over the next 2 to 3 months so that nothing slips through the cracks, and your brand is the one that is starting to inform them and make them think. Once you've done that and turned your website into a sales funnel, then it's time to start auditing the marketing spends hard. So, I'm really satirical with these quotes. Audit your marketing spends hard, and you see who said that? It was your hard-earned dollars. They want you to audit those spends. They don't want you to waste them. Yeah?
Did you just say send 7 to 20
yes.
emails to a customer?
Absolutely.
If somebody did that to me, daily,
perfect.
I don't want to
perfect.
that person at all.
Perfect. I totally agree. And that means that they weren't that serious.
It also will remind, when you get to that point where you really want it, you'll remember that.
You hit it on the head. Yep. So we're going to talk, one of the things I believe that none of our products are big enough to do ads that don't have a direct call to action. If you're Coca-Cola, you can do an ad that doesn't have a direct call to action. You're big enough, your brand has enough awareness. None of our companies, and frankly, none of our manufacturers are even big enough to do that. Customers don't have a clue. They could care less who your manufacturer is. It doesn't matter. And we all know this. I mean, as a retailer, you know that it's you that makes the fireplace. It's not the manufacturer. Now, as you're doing this, what you have to think about is, because the manufacturers and the dealers, we're not big enough to have that kind of brand awareness, we have to be super tactical and targeted in what we do. But in the 7 to 20 emails thing, that's your branding opportunity. You're getting in front of that customer 7 to 20 times, and even if they delete the email, it's totally okay. As long as they don't unsubscribe to the list, you're still, every 4 days or week or however often you want to send them, they're still getting your name, they're still getting your name, they're still getting your name. That's where you get your branding in. When you're spending hundreds of thousands on radio and TV ads, don't mess with branding. Have a clear call to action that you can track. But once you get that email address, then you can start to brand and brand and brand. And the way that I look at it as, if they delete it, totally fine. If they unsubscribe, it's totally fine. It means that, hey, they weren't as serious as we wanted them to be. And maybe you get another shot at it at some point, but I would rather collect 5,000 plus email addresses a year of people who say they want my products and I can constantly brand to, and maybe you lose 2-3% of them, due to unsubscribing. I'd way rather have that than not collect any and miss out on 5,000 potential customers that we could have helped. Does that answer the question?
Well, it seems an overload, but I understand where you're coming from now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's up to you guys to figure out the timing. For us, it's 7 to 20, and it's worked out really, really, really well.
What's 7 to 20?
So customers, if they subscribe to a lead from our website, they're going to get emailed 7 to 20 times over the next 2 to 3 months from us. But you want to audit those spends. So once you have built your website to start to become a sales funnel for you guys, you want to start to audit what you do. And that was what we did when I first got to Fireside years ago. Was we just started looking at it. Hey, what are we spending on print? What are we spending on TV? What are we spending on our radio? And is it actually working? Well, in order to do that, number one, you got to track your door swings. Because if you don't track your door swings, and I mean every single door swing, you don't know why people are coming in. So number one is you got to track your door swings. Whenever I teach sales and marketing, I always tell folks that if there's one thing to take away from this presentation, just one thing, track your door swings. Even if it's on a handwritten sheet of paper, you're tracking how many people came in, what did they look at, who sent them in, why did they get in here, and that'll start to tell you a lot about marketing. And I'll tell you, I was going to tell this story later, but I'll tell it now because it's kind of funny. I was with an unnamed company a little while ago. This was like literally within the last 3 weeks. And they do track their door swings. And we were auditing their marketing spends for the following year. And they had spent $80,000 in radio. And so now we're into May, so we're a decent ways into the year, and it's me, the owner, and the radio guy. And I told them before the meeting, I said, am I allowed to be really honest in this meeting? And they said, yeah, you can be honest. So I said, okay. So we get in the meeting, we're looking at the spends, and I said to the radio guy, I said, so how much did they spend in radio last year? And he's like, I think it was, I said it was about $75,000, right? And he goes, no, I think it was about 50. And I was like, are you sure about that? And he goes, well, let me look it up. So he looks it up. No, $80,000. He says, okay, so $80,000. Mr. Owner, why don't you pull up your foot traffic? How many people came into the store saying that they heard about you on the radio? Guess how many it was? Zero. And I looked at the radio guy and I said, hey, maybe we need to pull back our dollars a little bit here. And the radio guy goes, well, that's not how radio works. Radio it's top of the funnel. It's all about branding. It's all about, information. They're learning about your company. And then eventually they're going to go to your website. And then when they come into your store, they're going to say it was the website, even though they heard about it on the radio. And I said, okay. I'm looking at the owner of the company saying, like, can you read between the lines here? And I'm like, so maybe, okay. So what if we put a call to action in every radio ad of, mention this when you come in, get 10% off, get 15% off. And the radio guy goes, well, as soon as you say call to action, that's kind of like fingernails on the chalkboard for me because it's not the way that radio works. And I look at the owner and I'm like, so do you want to take an $80,000 bath for 0 people to come in saying that they heard about you on the radio? Or do you want to put a call to action in your radio ad to find out if this actually works? I mean, we can't even have a marketing conversation if we can't track this stuff. The point being, audit your spends because it starts to give you power. You'll start to figure out what does it cost us to get a customer. So if you're going to run a TV ad for whatever TV is in your market, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 depending on the campaign, well, take a look at, okay, what kind of an ROI do we need to get and what's the time frame of that ROI? I really believe this. I had someone take me to task one time. It was 2 years ago in Nashville when I was giving a presentation about this. And one of the dealers said, hey, Tim, it sounds like you're really down on branding. You're only about sales. Isn't there a time and place for our company to brand with the community? And my answer is yes, but not when you're spending $100,000. Get a customer's email address and then start your branding because it's free. But none of us are Coca-Cola. None of us are Pepsi. And that goes back to it. If you guys have a headache, what's the first thing that you get? Tylenol. Do you just randomly think about, boy, Tylenol is such a good company. I'm so glad that they've just been family owned for years. Do you ever think about that? No. You have a problem, they have a solution, and then they're out of your life. And our companies are the same way. Now, I'm not saying that you can't retain relationships with customers, because you can, but in this fast-paced world, customers move on really quickly. So you gotta audit those spends and make sure you got direct calls to action in anything you're paying money for, so you can start to track it. Any questions about that before we move on? Okay. So the next thing is, once we have turned our websites into something that's working for us and not confusing customers, once we have audited our marketing spends to figure out what works and what doesn't work, the next step is creating clear and simple messaging. So going back to it, we talked about this in the last session, so we're not going to belabor the point, but you want to speak at a 1 or a 2. This goes back to the curse of knowledge. Remember, we're hearth experts. So on a scale of 1 to 10, our knowledge base is like a 9 or a 10. When we simplify things, normally we can bring it down to a 6 or a 7. Customers are buying at a 1 or a 2. So in every piece of advertising that you do, any kind of marketing or sales copy, keep it at a 1 or a 2. Keep it painfully simple, because for your customer, it's not painfully simple. And your customers aren't stupid, and you don't necessarily need to dumb it down, but there's ways to explain it. Just imagine if you go to your doctor and they start giving you all this gibberish and acronyms and long names. You're not stupid, but it would really help if the doctor could simplify it to explain it in a context that you understand. And again, with your TV or your radio or your print ad, you don't have much time to win a consumer over. And if you can't clearly cut through the noise and explain the pain point that you address, then it's going to be really, really tough. The next thing is, don't give them too many bowling balls. So when you're creating this messaging, it's got to be totally customer-centered. Very often in our industry, we see companies that love to brag about themselves. You can pick the manufacturer, pick the dealer, it doesn't matter, but companies love to brag about themselves. Well, we make the best fireplaces. We've got the best brands. We professionally install our products. None of those things are bad necessarily, but if they're not framed in a way that shows how is it in your customer's best interest, it doesn't matter. And the question I always ask is, whenever we do sales practice with my team, I always tell my team, whenever we're going into sales practice, I'm going to be a lowercase j jerk. I'm not going to be an uppercase j jerk, but I'm going to start to push a little bit. And whenever we're in sales practice and a team member starts to just list random features, I'll interrupt and I'll say, so what? So, hey, this has an intermittent pilot ignition system. So what? Hey, this has 5 different fronts to choose from. So what? Well, yeah, we've been a family business for 30 years. So what? If you don't explain the so what, it doesn't matter. You have to tie that back into, why is the customer coming to see you? What's their problem? What's the gain that they want to achieve? And if the words coming out of your mouth don't address those things, it's white noise and it doesn't matter. It's just confusing. So the way to win, in my opinion, in marketing, if you can take a hard look at your website, you can audit your spends, and you can focus on these simple messages, I think that it's a recipe for success. Like I said, we cut our marketing budget back by 90% about 6 years ago. And if I told you what our marketing budget was in the state of Oregon, you would not believe me, because it's less than most companies spend in a month. It's our yearly budget. And to be honest, we're getting to the point now where, as the economy is slowing down a little bit, we do need to ratchet that marketing up a little bit, but we're going to do it a little bit. And we're going to audit it and track it. We've got our website set up to be a sales funnel, so we believe that we've grown exponentially over the last 5-6 years. In order to keep growing, we got to open up that marketing a little bit, but now we're in a position to do that and win, as opposed to just blindly spending and hoping that it goes somewhere. Any questions about marketing before we move on? I can tell you guys are tired. Don't worry, beer is coming. Beer is coming. In 3 hours when I'm done.
Work on your website?
Very little. So I do a lot of it, and then we've got a person that we know and trust that we have on retainer for under $1,500 a month.
So to me, that's marketing expense.
Yep.
Your cost to that is marketing expense.
Yep. Yeah. And I would just, a word of caution when it comes to the digital stuff like that is when it comes to SEO, search engine optimization, Google AdWords and things like that, you got to find somebody that you really trust, that they can show you concretely to the point where you can understand every little bit of it, what they're doing. Otherwise, don't spend the money on it. I know that stuff like that can be technical, but if the person that you're paying doesn't have an intimate understanding of your company, of what you're after, and they can articulate it back to you, I wouldn't spend on it. There's a lot of things. I mean, if you use WordPress to build a website, it's like the easiest platform out there. It's very, very simple for people to edit, and I would imagine that you could find someone in your company that could at least part of the time could work on some of these things. There's also great copywriters that are out there who can help you develop these email campaigns and stuff like that. But I do think that capturing an email address from a customer and marketing to them is the cheapest marketing you can do. And if you think about it, you're already paying hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to send them to your webpage. You may as well capture the information. So moving from marketing into sales, what we want to talk about next is the idea that the web is creeping in. In this new landscape of business, we're seeing pressure from the web. I mean, we can all name online retailers that are selling. Sometimes distributors are selling online. Manufacturers sometimes are selling online. I know that we get people in our showrooms that as we are talking to the customer, we can see them on Amazon or on xyz.com looking up the price of fireplaces. If it's not the one that we're showing them, then something that they think is comparable to it. And this is just something that we have to address. And again, I'm not saying that this is evil. You got to be prepared for it, but I mean, go back to the story I told you about being at Best Buy looking for those HDMI cables. If I do my research online and I think it's going to be one price and I get to the store and it's a different price, I'm probably going to double check that. And that's not evil. We would all do the same thing because no one wants to be taken advantage of. But we got to prepare for it. If we're not preparing for this, then we're going to lose. So one of the things that is out there, so going back to Amazon, Yelp, Google reviews, I mean, every single one of us. Do you guys all fight negative reviews? Or am I the only person in here? I'm the only. You guys, okay, 2. We have 3 honest people.
What was the question?
Do we fight negative reviews? Do we have Yeah, we all fight negative reviews. I've heard so many businesses complain about, hey, we offer a great product and service, but you only get the bad people that leave reviews. The good experiences, they don't leave the reviews. We can complain all that we want about it, but there's so much pessimism in our industry about how the web has crept in. So this is a statistic from last year in the January edition of Hearth and Home magazine, and the statistic said that 64% of hearth retailers believe that the internet has negatively affected their business. 64%. Yeah.
I don't mind a negative review if it's substantial. My problem is the negative reviews where they give you 1 star with no comment, or there's no, and then every time I see a review, I go back to my database to find out if that was a true customer.
Yeah.
Or I check to see with my sales associate if it was maybe we quoted something to them, and you can't even find them. It's just like some random Joe Blow drove by and just put a 1 star. And so other than that, it's those the ones I have the problems with, because the other ones, if there's truly a problem.
Yes, that's a great point. For the people on the other side of the room, so she talked about how she doesn't mind the negative reviews if they're legit, there's a substantial explanation. The pain points are when there's a 1-star review with no comment, no nothing. Yeah?
You just ask for the good reviews.
Yes.
I mean, that's how you combat the negative reviews, is that you have to ask people. My old boss hated the Y word, right? And when I came in and I started asking for positive reviews, when his stars went from 2 to 5
Yeah.
to 2 to 4 because of the positive reviews, that's how he changed his mind about the Yelp word.
Yeah, no, that's dead on. So she talked about the Y word, the Yelp word, and how a lot of businesses want to ignore it. And they say, it doesn't matter, we got those reviews, we still have customers coming in. I wasn't going to go this deep on reviews, but I think it's important as we're getting into it here, that whether we like it or not, your customers trust Google more than they trust you. They trust Yelp more than they trust you. And perception is reality. It doesn't matter how good of a product you offer, it doesn't matter how good your business is. If Yelp or Google says it is bad, then your consumers think it's bad. I mean, they really do, and they'll go check out everybody else before you. And it goes, like, I get this analogy all the time. Me and my wife love Thai food. So if we're going to go to a Thai food place, what's the first thing that I do? Punch up my phone, Google Maps, punch in Thai food. Now, I'll get 4 or 5 places around here. Does anything under 4 stars even get my attention? No. So if under 4 stars, you wouldn't get a $8.50 plate of Thai food there, do you think your customers want to spend $5,000 to $10,000 with you? No. So I'm convinced you got to go all in on reviews, and this is a work in progress for us. So when I took over all of our showrooms, it was just about a year ago. Before that, I just had our Oregon territory. So we've got one of our showrooms that we're working on this with because it was neglected for years. With all of our others, we got great reviews and we're in a good spot. But in this one showroom, even though every other location is amazing, we're going to work on this one. And I really believe that, like you said, you have to ask for them. That good reviews very rarely happen on their own. Just like you got to have a sales process, you got to have a review process. What's the process? Do we use a paid system? Do we use an unpaid system? I'm glad that we went there on reviews because that's super, super important. But with this statistic that 64% of businesses in our hearth industry believe that the internet has negatively affected them, I think that's like the most ridiculous pessimism I've ever heard. And we can complain all we want about Yelp or Google or Uber or people showrooming you where they use your showroom and then they buy it online. We can complain all that we want, but the fact of the matter is that the internet has helped us more than we could have ever imagined. Yeah.
When I'm out on the road traveling in sales
Yeah.
and looking for a good restaurant or whatever, I look at the reviews, and like you said, you look for the good stars, but you're still going to have those negative reviews.
Yes.
I personally look to see how the owner responds to them, and it tells me whether that person is really just a pain in the ass,
Yep.
or whether they actually, the consumer, the owner of the company is actually a very professional person.
Totally agree. So he brought up a great point that when he's on the road looking at restaurants, he'll check the reviews, and if there's bad ones, he'll look to see how the company responded to it. It's an amazing point. Absolutely respond to every single review. I think that you need to be balanced at least 5-to-1 good reviews for every bad one, but having a bad review or two, if you can respond to it with grace and tact, that buys you credibility. No one wants to see a perfect 5-star. They think that something's fishy, but that 5-to-1 ratio is a pretty good ratio. Now, Google's tough because if you get one bad review, at least a little while ago, you had to get up to there's either 5 or 10 good reviews to compensate for it. But the point being, you still want to be in that 4.2 to 4.7 range on Google. If you're there, you can handle a bad review or two if you respond to it with grace.
This is changing the subject a little bit from the reviews.
Yeah.
You've commented several times already, and I know I think you're going to head this direction. The online competition aspect, how in a country that is highly regulated as far as professional installation, how are we having competition with online sales?
Well, I think it was HPBA released the data a little while ago. I think it was HPBA that 20% of purchases of hearth products are done online now. 20%. And that number's only going to go up.
Who's installing them?
Good question. I don't know. HVAC guys, builders, framers.
I know who they're calling to service them.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is that it's there. It affects all of us. And what our job is, when all things are equal, price is the deciding factor. Our job is to prove that all things are not equal. This needs a professional installation. This needs follow-up service work. Yeah, John?
Well, Tim, how many websites spend any time on, here is our team, and I want to see, Tim Reed, NFI, they
Yep.
install, now granted, I'm kind of talking you up, but I'm talking you up because I'm trying to speak to the fact that Tim comes to make fire in your living room safely.
Yes. Yeah, John hit it on the head for people that didn't hear him. Is on your website, super valuable to have a section of your team showing pictures. This is the person who's coming out. They've been installing for us. Yeah, for 15 years. They've got this certification. It's your job to show that all things are not equal. And this next slide is going to kind of dive into, you actually have unshoppable value points that online doesn't have, but if you don't talk about them, they don't exist. It's the whole thing of if you've got a fireplace that has an amazing feature, but you don't tell it to a consumer, then the feature doesn't exist. Now you got to be careful, don't give them features that they don't need, but if you don't verbalize it, it's not there. So if you look at this, and I've got this broken up in B2C versus B2B. So if you're a B2C business to consumer, what can you have that's unshoppable value compared to online? Well, an in-home preview. Can Amazon come out to do an in-home preview at your house? Design consultation, before and after notebooks, knowledge of industry trends, in-house installation, project management. Those are pieces of unshoppable value that most likely every single person here has. But if you don't tell your customer about it, the value doesn't exist. If they just think, I'm getting a fireplace, how hard can it be to install? shame on us for not educating them. Shame on us for not pushing into the pain point. And customers may not be aware of this pain point, but you don't want someone that's not qualified putting a fire in your house on purpose. Customers don't know that necessarily when they come into your showroom. This is where it's up to you to amplify that pain and show them that this is a big deal. If you're B2B, if you're a distributor or a manufacturer, man, this is so valuable. Business coaching. So, retailers that are in here right now, can you put your hands up if you have one sales rep that is like your business coach? It's not just about the sales, it's about them coaching you and talking about market trends. Do you guys have reps like that? There's not many. But as a sales rep, you've got industry knowledge, you've got market knowledge, and it's up to you to be like a consultant for your business. I heard a great quote from a friend of mine named Tim Rethlake, and he was talking to sales reps, and he said, if when you leave a client's office, if you can't send them an invoice for your time, and they, if you send them an invoice for your time and they laughed at it, then you're a bad sales rep. You should be able to send them an invoice for your time and they're happy to pay it because there was so much value they got out of that relationship. So business coaching is a huge thing for B2B companies. Manufacturers, dive into this. Give business coaching. Sales training. One of the most valuable things that reps can give me, I'm sure it's the same for you guys, teach my team how to sell. Teach them how to sell. I don't care about product features. I can read about that in a brochure. I don't care about technical stuff. I can give them the NFI book. I can give them a manual to read. Now, you guys might be different than me, but for me, I really feel like I can have my service techs train that stuff. I want to teach my people to sell. If a rep can do that, I'll give them all the time in the world. Complete to promise records. So if you're a B2B business and you keep complete to promise records, man, that's great value. If you've got a dealer that's going between buying online versus buying from you, and you can show, hey, our trucks always come, at this rate. If something gets held back, this is how we fulfill that order. I got proof from the last 3 years to show this to you. That's stuff that really makes a difference. Warranty percentage. If you're a distributor or a manufacturer that can say, less than 2% of our units have warranty issues, that's a big deal. It's a piece of value. Technical support, quarterly sales seminars. The point being that these things are so valuable. And if you articulate this, you can win sales that may have been lost online if you didn't. That if this value that you offer is not communicated, the customers don't know that it exists. So it's up to us to communicate that value. It would be worth taking some time with your sales teams, whether you're B2B or B2C. Take some time with your sales teams and just talk for 30 minutes. What are the value pieces that we have? For our company, we have a scheduling department. And in my head, I'm like, well, yeah, we have to call the customer and schedule it and find out when the stuff is going to be in. But not all companies have that. And online doesn't always have that. To be able to talk to the customer about, this is how we work from start to finish. Here's how we're going to schedule it. We're going to keep you in the loop every step of the way. You can expect communication at this point, at this point, at this point. That starts to be a value piece that we just graze over. Again, curse of knowledge. We're too close to it. We don't realize the customer doesn't know that. So we got to make sure that we're talking about what are those unshoppable things. The next thing, if we want to win when it comes to sales, is this. We have to stop being the hero. So it is up to us to position ourselves and our company not as the hero of the story, but as the trusted advisor. And this is what, I can't give you a number, but I would say most companies in our industry are so guilty of being the hero. They're guilty about making it all about them. Again, whether it's online or in the showroom, well, we sell the best brands. You want to buy from us because we've been doing this the longest time. We've got the best people. We've been doing all this. And you make it all about you. Customers don't want a hero. They're already the hero of their own story. Honestly, they could care less about how long you've been in business. It doesn't matter to them. What matters to them is that there's something wrong and they need help with it. They only care about how long you've been in business if it helps them address the need that they have. If it doesn't address it, then it doesn't matter. And this goes back to Donald Miller and StoryBrand that I keep referencing, but they talk about how when a consumer wakes up in the morning, they're the hero of their own story, right? And you guys too, this is the way we all are, right? We all got dreams and aspirations and things that we want to do. And if we weren't in this industry, when we wake up in the morning, buying a fireplace is not one of those dreams and aspirations. There's other things that we want with our kids, with our lives, with our status. So at some point, something happens where a problem arises. Maybe we're building a house and the builder says you need a fireplace. Maybe your fireplace breaks and your house is cold. Whatever it is, that's the point when you go talk to a dealer. When you go talk to a dealer, if they're sitting there bragging about themselves and how their grandpa started the company 30 years ago and they've been doing this in 5 counties for the longest time, they got 1 billion stores and all the best brands, there's not room for 2 heroes in the story. What happens in your head as a consumer is you start to think, well, I'm a hero. I'm trying to get these things in my life, and apparently you're a hero too. That's great, but can you get out of my way? I need someone to help solve my problem. We have to stop being the hero. We have to make it about the customer. And what this comes down to, I give the analogy all the time with my team about we should think about our jobs like a financial advisor. So, I'm assuming, all of us want to retire someday. And in order to do that, you have to invest money over years to have it grow. A financial advisor, they win when you win. It's not about them. It's about, hey, can we make you a millionaire? Can we help you retire? Can we come alongside you and do these things? We're the same way for our customers. We should be like the financial advisor, not the hero of the story. And this is really tough. I mean, we should audit all the words that come out of our mouths, all the brochures that we produce, everything on our website. Are we positioning ourselves as the trusted advisor? Because that's who we latch onto. If you think about it, if you go to like a cocktail party and you're introduced to people for the first time, and people just yak about themselves, they don't ask any questions about you, it's all about them and how good they are. Like, are those the people that you want to hang out with? They're not. I mean, the people that you want to hang out with are the people that ask about you. Maybe they hear something about your life and they're like, oh my gosh, you know what? I had that happen 5 years ago. Here's what we did about it. Like, those are the people that you want to encounter. So you got to make yourself the trusted advisor. So the way that we become that advisor, again, these are some similar points we've already talked about, is number one, if we want customers to trust us, we want to be the advisor. Number one is we only talk about our business as it relates to solving your customer's problem. I know I've said that like 50 times today, but if what you're talking about does not address either the pain that they have or the gain that they want to achieve, don't say it, because it's just white noise. It doesn't matter. It's distracting. And I've had people kind of push back a little bit. I got an email last week from a dealer out in New York that was listening to my podcast, and I was talking about this. And he kind of said, hey, well, but we are a family business. We've been around for 30 years. Like, I think that actually really is valuable. You mean that we can't talk about that? And I said, well, if it relates to the pain or the gain that your customer has or wants to achieve, then absolutely talk about it. But if it doesn't, tell your kids at the dinner table about it. Don't tell your customers about it because they don't care. We had a situation about a week and a half ago in our house where me and my wife were watching TV downstairs. We have a 2-level house. Our kids are in bed, and all of a sudden we hear this little noise, like scratching across the top of our ceiling. We're like, that's weird. I don't think. And I have a 3-year-old daughter. I think she's in bed asleep. We checked the baby monitor. The kids are asleep. All of a sudden we hear this little scratch again. We got a mouse in between our first and second floor. We can hear it going around there. Now, your guys' spouses may not be like my wife, but the idea of a mouse in our house is not very appealing to Jessica Reed. And so instantly, we jumped online to figure out who can help us. We started making calls, trying to figure it out, and there was a little bit of panic because I traveled a decent amount for my job. I knew I'd be flying out to Kansas City. This is like on Friday night, we're dealing with this. And I'll just tell you, when I'm looking for a pest control place, I am not sitting there thinking, have they been in business for 30 years? I wonder if his grandpa, you know what? I bet they're closed on Sundays because they care about their employees. Dude, I don't care. I don't care. What I'm saying is there's a freaking mouse in my ceiling. Who's the first person that can show they're competent and come out to remove it? Our customers are no different. Dan made a great point that customers buy either to avoid pain or to achieve gain. Either way, they want to find out, are you competent and who's the first person that can come out? You got to stop being the hero, make it about them. The first company that can come alongside me and say, Tim, hey, I know what it's like to have a mouse in your house. That's why we have 24-hour service. We're going to be out there in 4 hours. Done. Done. Because it solved my problem. It addresses my pain point. The reason that's motivating my purchase is right there. So we need to talk about our business only as it relates to solving our customer's problem. We need to treat our customers next like they are the hero. And this is really, really tough. There's a lot of dealers that want to have the spotlight. But we have to be okay letting the customer have the spotlight. Our business is a means to an end. Our customers don't wake up in the morning thinking, how can I give money to this fireplace company? They wake up in the morning thinking, man, I want a beautiful fireplace and I bet our family's going to have an amazing time if we can redo it. Once they've got that fireplace, I mean, honestly, they're thinking, awesome, I achieved it. I can go back to my life. I can keep doing what I was going to do. We have to allow that. We can't make it all about us. We got to treat them like they're the hero. And the way that we do that, honestly, we got to have a strong ego. And there's a difference between a strong ego and a big ego. We got to have a strong ego. We have to be okay with someone else having the spotlight. It's their idea. They're the one being the hero. It's them that found this amazing fireplace. Oh, we just installed it. They're the ones that did the legwork. We have to make it about them. And I didn't want to get political here, but there's a difference between a big ego and a strong ego. I'm just going to say that. There's a difference. Treat your customers like they are the hero. Don't make it about you. If you think about this, you as the trusted advisor are such a stronger person than them. You don't have to have the limelight. You're not insecure enough to have it. You can allow the customer to have it be their idea, and they figure everything out, and they don't say thank you at the end. It's okay. It's okay. You're the guide. You're the advisor. You've been there before. Next up is, if you want to become the trusted advisor, you have to call the hero to action. Now remember, in the customer journey, who's the hero? Customer. Your business is the advisor. Yes, the trusted advisor. So the whole thing with the advisor is that the advisor has been there before. That's why you're competent to solve this problem. Your businesses have been there before. We understand what it's like to have a freezing cold house. We understand how to fix a broken fireplace. But then you have to call the hero to action. So I gave this presentation a little while ago in Oregon, in my own state, and one of the dealers stood up and said, well, I really pride myself on not being salesy. Like, we let the customer make their own decision. And I say, okay, that's fine, but when you try to be not salesy, it actually comes across as incompetence to the customer. If you go to your doctor and you need surgery, and the doctor goes, well, let me tell you about these 4 different processes. You could do this one here, and this is what would happen. You could do this one, you could do this one, you could do this one. But I mean, I'm not. You pick. It's up to you. You just pick whatever's best. I'm not putting any pressure on you to do this. Whenever you want to make a decision, you just come back and talk to me. What's that make you think about the doctor? They're not competent to solve your problem. You need a doctor that says, hey, these are the options in front of you. I've been in this for 30 years. There's value there because you can say, I've seen this before. I know how this plays out over the 30 years. This is what I would recommend. When do you want to move ahead with it? Now, it's not up to you to manipulate, but it is up to you to call them to action. If they decide not to do business with you, hey, God bless, that's awesome. They're under no coercion to do that. But how dare we, claiming to be salespeople, not call the customer to action when that's the entire reason that they've come in to see us? I mean, I'm sorry, but we're in the sales business. And the whole thing is, like, your customers know that. If they come into your showroom, they are fully expecting that you will ask them to buy a product. I mean, they really are.
Destination business. They're coming to look at fireplaces.
100%. I mean,
just wander through.
No, I mean, we're not IKEA where people just roll through on a Saturday because they got nothing better to do. I mean, if your locations are anything like mine, they're hard to find and there's no parking. I mean, seriously. And you think about the pain of a customer. Have you guys ever had a big decision that you've put off because you were scared? And it would have been better for someone to call you to action earlier than you actually did when you made the decision? A $5,000 to $10,000 purchase is scary. I mean, literally, so we bought a car a number of years ago. We saved up for 5 years. And we bought a car in cash. Where I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. I hate debt. I like cash. So we've saved up for 5 years, me and my wife. And so when we're looking at these cars, we're thinking, dude, like, every $500 matters because, like, this is our money that we've saved up. I was terrified. I mean, it ended coming down to it. We knew the model, we knew the year, we knew it was the right fit, and I was terrified of it. And my wife, she said, look, this is the right car. You just go in there, and I just trust you're gonna do the right thing. So my wife had sent me in to buy the car. We knew it was the right thing. We'd done all of our research, and I'm sitting at the desk, and everything in me is still saying, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. I needed the salesperson to call me to action. Tim, hey, this seems to meet all the safety features that we talked about. Isn't that right? Yep, that's exactly right. I think your pregnant wife, once she has this baby girl, I think that she's going to love how safe this car is sitting in the back. Isn't that right? Yep, that's absolutely right. And I know that you talked about your budget. This falls within your budget, doesn't it? Yeah, it falls within my budget. Tim, I think it's time to do it. You're going to get yourself an amazing car. Guess what? I wrote the check. If they wouldn't have done that, I don't know, I might have left. Call the hero to action. About a month and a half ago, I was at a workshop in Dallas, Texas. My friend Bradley Hartman has a workshop that's called the Sales Fundamentals Workshop. If you do any kind of work with builders, you have to go to this event. I'll just tell you, it's extremely expensive and it's worth every penny. So it's 3 days in Dallas. It's all about selling to builders. And a lot of the content is very similar to what I'm talking about today, but it's just a great deep dive. So Bradley's story is that he worked as a purchasing manager at Pulte Homes out of the Chicago area for years. And he purchased for Chicago, Denver, Milwaukee, a bunch of different major markets for Pulte Homes. So he's got all these people coming in to sell him stuff: sheetrock, nails, lumber, fireplaces, all these things. So anyway, now he does sales training to help people with this. So we go through this course, and at the end of the course, he says, okay, now you're going to put all this to use. And he opens up the door, and 5 random guys walk in. And he goes, hey, this is so-and-so. He's the VP of sales at Toll Brothers. Hey, this guy, I don't remember what his name was. He's a custom home builder in the Chicago area. This guy builds in Miami. This guy builds in Los Angeles. You got a meeting in 20 minutes. You going to get ready for it? And literally, we got to sign a meeting with like these real-life builders. So we go through it. They videotape the meeting, so you've got game footage of how you do, talking to builders about these things. And at the end, they bring all the builders on stage talking to the group and just giving feedback about the meetings. You got personalized feedback, but they're speaking generally. These builders, and I'm telling you, like VPs of national builders all the way to small custom guys, when they talked about what they wanted from salespeople, the number one thing they said is, I wish salespeople would ask me for what they want. If they want me to buy, I wish they'd ask me about it. If they want an appointment, I wish they'd ask me. Don't waste my time. If a customer does 20 hours of research online, they drive to your store, they spend 45 minutes with a salesperson, ask them, do you want an estimate? Can we write you up an estimate? When can we come out for an in-home visit? Can we send you a picture of this fireplace? Always have there be a next step. Because, honestly, if you get that far down the road, I'm going to be upset that you wasted my time. You didn't even ask me. It shows how much you care about your product. It shows me how good you think your product is, that you don't even have the guts to ask me if I want to buy something that makes my life better. So that's how you position yourself as the advisor. Honestly, if you go see a financial advisor and they say, hey, if you can invest this percentage over this many years, we're going to do this with a Roth IRA, with a 401k, with all these different, we're going to invest in real estate here, the stock market here, whatever it is. And they say, if you do these things, you're going to be a millionaire by the time that you're 65. But I don't want to put pressure on you. Hey, we'll see you later. Just take this brochure, staple the card to it. Okay, we'll see you guys later. What kind of financial advisor is that? What's the next question they should ask?
Ready to go?
You're ready to go.
Sign you up.
Sign you up. Your customers are no different. That positions you as the trusted advisor. Ask for what you want. Any questions about that before we move on?
Yeah, did you name the mouse?
We have not named the mouse yet. I'm hoping it's gone before we're able to make emotional attachment to it.
I'm sure your wife is too.
Yeah, my wife, literally the 2-hour window when they were supposed to come has elapsed. I got a text message right before I got on today that they have not showed up yet, so we will see. I'll fill you guys in tomorrow. But the point being, your customers are no different. I know that fireplaces are not exactly a panic item the way that the mouse in our upstairs was, but the underlying motivations are exactly the same. They only care about your 30-year pedigree if it relates to addressing the pain or the gain that they want to achieve. If it doesn't address it, don't talk about it. Yeah?
Have you found that having an actual person answering a phone is a huge deal for your customers rather than an answering machine? Because I just move on to the next one, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to speak really, really transparently here. I believe that a live person answering the phone is 100% necessary. So our company is kind of complex. We've got about 200 employees in the Pacific Northwest over 6 showrooms. Because of the volume of calls that we get, a number of years ago, our company decided to go to a phone tree. And I raised hell about it. I was like, do not do this. Do not do it. We're going to drop calls, lose customers, create upset people. Anyway, that's what we decided to do. We are now revisiting that, and we are going to get somebody live answering every single call. We've hired for that position. I think it goes back to the fact, if it's the middle of the night and your fireplace is broken and at 8 in the morning you call somebody and I get a phone tree, no, I don't want to talk to him. So I'm a huge fan of live.
Well, and I think it also has to be key frontline contacts. So it can't just be minimum wage. Yeah, I'll get you Tim.
Yes.
Let me see if I can find him. It needs to be someone who is trained to do initial diagnostic.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Give them a script. Give them a checklist. Absolutely.
Sales position. Do you record calls?
We do.
So when do you tell the client calling in that you're going to record the call?
We don't. In our state, we don't have to. But what you could do, I mean, you could make it part of your script. You could also wait until it gets transferred maybe to the first point of contact and it's on the hold music. There's a couple different ways to do it, but in our state, we don't have to tell them. It's just one party consent.
Do you record internal calls?
No, we don't. That'd be great though. Yeah, internal calls would be great. Okay, so next up, we want to be able to make it easy for the customer. You know, if we want to win in sales, we got to make it easy. I'm not going to belabor this point because we talked a lot about it, but in everything we do, we got to ask, is this easier for the customer? Even if it's pain on our end. You know, do you charge to go out for an in-home preview? Some companies do, some companies don't. If you make it a big sticking point to where it makes it difficult for the customer, they're going to get turned off by it. You know, if you're talking about, like, if a customer calls us on the phone, we had this happen a couple years ago, where one of our sales guys was complaining because he wasn't as busy as he wanted to be. And he was actually complaining. I know you never think there'd be complaining in my own company with my own team, but he was complaining about one of the other sales guys. He says, you know, this guy's he just gets all the in-home appointments and I don't get any of them. And so we talked about it, and I said, well, you know, when the customer calls on the phone, he does his diagnostic with them on the phone, and he qualifies them. He understands the pain point that they have, and he goes out to the sale. And this guy goes, well, no, I don't do that. I have them come into the showroom first. I want them to look at the products. And I said, well, okay, you know, if the customer's calling you, is it easier for them to drive 40 minutes to come see us, hang out for 40 minutes, and then drive home and wait a week for you to come out? Or is it easier for them to spend 5 minutes on the phone getting some questions answered and you show up at their house, you know, within 3 to 5 days? Which one's easier for the customer? I'm not saying you have to do exactly what we do, but the point being, at every decision point that you have, think about, is this easier for the customer? And then take a step back to the internal teams. Like Dan said, is this easier for our internal teams? Do we have complicated paperwork that makes it difficult for our installers to understand the scope of work of the jobs? If we do, that's not making it easy for the installers. The point being is that in everything we do, we want to make it easy. Speed and convenience are the new expertise. The way that we make it easy, like we talked about before, is start with easy pricing for your sales team. You know, create easy pricing that shows, I mean, I'm fully okay with salespeople seeing what we pay, seeing our margin levels, seeing discount levels. I mean, you can treat that however you want, but if you can create easy pricing for your sales team, they're going to make it easier for the customers. They're going to quote more, they're going to sell more, they're going to close more. Implement a sales process. Again, I was talking before this about if I tell my team, we're in Portland, Oregon, if I say, hey, you got to drive to New York, good luck. All right, I mean, maybe a couple of them make it, but I don't think my whole team is getting to New York. But if I tell them, hey, you know what, first you got to drive through Eastern Oregon, then you're going to get to Idaho, then you're going to get to Montana, then you're going to get to, you know, whatever as it keeps going. The point being is that even though you don't want to micromanage it, there's a general route that sales takes. You know, someone asked me earlier about, I think it was Joan asked me about the 7-step sales process that we have. And honestly, it's so easy. Step 1, greet the customer. Step 2, understand their problem. Step 3, advise a solution. Step 4, make a plan. Step 5, call to action. Step 6, pursue the job. And then step 7, show gratitude afterwards. It's not rocket science. Any of us could come up with that. But the point being is that we've painted lines on the basketball court so we're all playing the same game. We have the same vocabulary. So now we can talk with team members when it comes to coaching about, hey, I noticed with this customer that you actually didn't take as much time understanding the problem as you should have. And that's what kind of set you up to confuse them as you were going through all the products. Hey, how has your pursuit been going? Have you been pursuing your jobs? Can I see how you've been following up on them? Gratitude. Have you been showing gratitude? You know, sending the customer a thank you card, a Starbucks card. It gives you a common language so you're all doing the same thing. So that's how you can make it easy for customers. The next part is this, and we're going to go really quick through this, but again, if we want to win in the new landscape, you got to hit your marketing, you got to hit your sales, and next up is you got to be able to retain employees. Employees don't grow on trees. You know, we know that our unemployment rate is ridiculously low, and most of the people that don't have jobs, I shouldn't say most, but many of the people that don't have jobs, there's a reason why. And that's just the market that we're in, which means that we got to grow employees, we got to grow team members. When it comes to growing and retaining team members, I always go back to this Zig Ziglar quote: if you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. So, I mean, it's the truth. If you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. So when it comes to your team members, set expectations. Give them sales goals. Show their progress towards it. The biggest reason that team members leave is because of frustration and lack of clarity over what the expectations were. That's the reason that burnout happens, is that they're not clear in what's expected of them. So for your team members, drop a job profile saying, hey, here's your duties in the showroom. Here's your duties out of the showroom. If you can do these things, you'll win. If you don't do these things, we're going to be having conversations about it. As a leader, that starts to help give you credibility where you're not the bad guy, because you were very clear in what the expectations were. Set expectations for your teams. Give them something to aim at. And I would honestly say, give your team sales goals. I had a dealer in Canada write me. He's in New Brunswick, and he was listening to my podcast. And he wrote me and was asking some questions about the content on it. And he mentioned that this was the first year that they've ever tracked their store sales. First year they've ever tracked the store sales. Now, awesome to him. He's a new owner coming in. He's doing really good things. But there's a lot of businesses that don't have a handle on their numbers. And I would say get a handle on your numbers and start to give your sales team goals. They should know what's expected of them. They should understand their progress towards it. If you give them something to aim at, they're going to hit it. This is a study that was done a little while back on goals. It was called the Goals, Monetary Incentives, and Workers' Performance. And basically it was a big study that showed that productivity increased 14% when a goal was set, regardless of if compensation was tied to it. So even if the comp wasn't tied to it, just having the focus and the clarity, knowing what you're aiming at, increased average productivity by 14% in this study. Your sales teams, your salespeople, and even you yourself are no different than that. Set goals. The next thing is, if you want to lead your team well, is to give your power away. I talk constantly that my number one job at Fireside is to work myself out of a job. Honestly, my goal at Fireside is to get fired, because I come in one day and the team doesn't need me. They got to figure it out. They're doing everything without me. And my boss either has to find something else for me to do or can me. That's my goal. And that should be every single one of your goals too, is to replace yourself. But so often, even though we say we want that, we hold stuff with an iron fist. It's our way or the highway, because we can do it best. Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, my team can't do it as good as me, so I do everything, so then I don't give as much to my team, and they never learn, so I have to do everything. The wheel starts spinning. Of course, as you give your power away, people aren't going to do it as good as you at first. But give your power away. It should be your 100% MO to replace yourself. Teach your team members to think like business owners. Pay them like business owners. Show them that if they can produce more, they will make more. Show them the bottom line. Show them the top line. Explain the differences. If you can do those things, you'll get radical buy-in from your team members. And they'll start to be desiring, to move up in your company, desiring to make you more money, because they've seen how it provides such an amazing standard of life for them. There's a great quote right here that talks about, it's a couple hundred years old. It says, if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to gather wood, divide the work, and give orders. Instead, teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. That's your job as a leader. Get that desire in your team members to yearn for the sea. They'll figure out how to build the freaking ship. Next up is team meetings. So if we want to retain people, it's okay, you can take that. So if you want to win, team meetings. So we're going to fly through the rest of it here, but I would highly encourage meeting with your team on a regular basis. At least every other week, meet with your team members. Do monthly one-on-ones. But getting together as a team is the most productive time you can spend as a leader. It really is. Touch base about your numbers. How are our goals going? What advertising are we working on right now? What's our sales process for this new product that we have coming in? Spend time. Team meetings are going to energize your people. They're going to clarify direction and buy you credibility. And most companies do not do a regular team meeting. I worked at 2 companies before I was here at Fireside, and I can count on one hand the number of meetings that we had in 9.5 years. Most companies don't do it. Meet with your team. In addition to that, you should be meeting individually with anybody that's a direct report to you. It should be a coaching meeting where you ask 5 simple questions. For me, it's a once-a-month rhythm. We get out of the office, we get lunch, we get a cup of coffee, and I've got 10 people now that are direct reporting to me. So for me, it's a lot. This is like 2 a week, more than that, 2.5 a week. But I think that this is some of the most valuable time we can spend. I ask them, how have things been? How are you doing with your goals, both work and personal? We had a guy a couple years ago that he really wanted to go to Japan. So we're talking about like, hey, how's it going? How's your savings goal going? Are you getting close to being able to go to Japan? Can I help you book your trip? Can I advise an airplane for you? Whatever it is. Ask the question, is there anything that I can be doing to help you get there as a leader? Show that humility. Because believe me, your team will tell you. When I ask my team, is there anything better I can do? Believe me, they've got feedback for me. It's up to me to listen to it, to be humble, to take it in. Is there anything I can be better? Is there anything I can do better for you as a leader? And then give them some action items of encouragement. If you can do those things, you're going to win. Very often, I have heard owners and managers say, well, my people, they don't care the way that I do. They don't care. They don't work as hard as I do. Well, I always go back to this Dr. Stephen Covey quote. He says, treat a man as he is, and he'll remain as he is. But treat a man as he can and should be, and he will be as he can and should be. Now, he wrote this back in the 80s. I would say he or she, right? Treat a person as they are, they'll remain as they are. But treat a person as they could be, and they will become who they could be. I think the truth for any of us that have kids, we know that this is the truth for our kids. If you speak truth, if you speak life, if you speak grace over your kids, how do you think they become? If you tell them they're worthless, they're washed up, they don't work hard enough, how do you think they act? It's the truth for your team members. Treat them that way. They're going to rise to the occasion. So I'm going to give you guys a couple resources here before we leave. One of them here, you ask, where do I start? Again, don't boil the ocean. Don't try to do everything at once. Pick one or two things to go to work on. Focus is the key to winning. If this has been helpful, I'm going to give you a second ebook. The first ebook had to do with what happens when we confuse our customers. The second one, this is called Roadmap to Success. This is 5 executable and repeatable steps that you can put in place to grow your company. And this is just me laying my cards on the table. 5 different things that we have done to help us. And they're not rocket science. Number 1, set expectations. What does it mean to set expectations? Well, it means you write a job description, you create goals. None of it's rocket science, but it's a systematic playbook that you can go to again and again and again to execute what you need. The website for it is itsfiretime.com/roadmap. That's itsfiretime.com/roadmap. The next resource that I'll give you is I put flyers on all the tables here. I've got a podcast. It's called the Fire Time Podcast. If you guys don't know what a podcast is, it's like an internet radio show. But every week we're talking with industry leaders. So we're talking from everybody from VP Berger, president of HHT, the president of Enviro. We talk to Travis Industries reps. I talk to a local installer that I compete against every day about what's it take to run a good install team. We talk to inside sales folks at distributors. The purpose of the podcast is to give you weekly content that you can use to send to your team members. Send it to your sales team. Hey, what do you think about this? Could this help you? So you can search in your podcast catcher for the Fire Time Podcast. The website's over here will help you too. But if you do these things, you can win. And the truth is that it really does start today. Listening to me for an hour and 12 minutes because I'm going over is not going to move the needle. But what will move the needle is taking these concepts, even 1 or 2 of them, and being diligent in your business to say no to the whirlwind and say yes to doing the things I need to do to grow my business. The truth of the matter is that you guys can succeed in the changing landscape. I fully believe, even though we're seeing things tighten up in our market, and I think that over the next year and a half, things are going to tighten up even more. I don't care. I still think there's more opportunity than has ever been there before when you think about what the internet can do. When you think about how tired most dealers in our industry are, if you can have a little bit of gumption, a little bit of a strategic plan, you guys can go out and crush it. You can succeed in the changing landscape. And I'm really thankful that I could be here today. Thank you so much for the time.